Cities are going broke. Is yours? State Senator John Moorlach, who was a CPA before he was a politician, has examined the financials of every city in California, all 482 of them, all of the California counties, and all of the states too. So who's in trouble? Who's okay? He's here to tell us. He'll also share his sometimes controversial ideas for dealing with the homeless, tackling the tough issues. John Moorlach. He's next on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by...
Each new community 5 Point brings to life represents a promise delivered. Great neighborhoods are more than just places to live, they are places to connect. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
All your life, people talk about what's best for you. But to most people, it's just that. Talk. Unless you're with Memorial Care, a healthcare system devoted to one important thing: what's best for you.
Yeah, well, let's talk more about that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Reiff, and I'm talking with State Senator John Moorlach. John, thanks for coming on. We're going to be talking about a couple of important issues, and just before we get into this study that you did on the financial shape of California cities, let's discuss the elephant in the room, because once you start talking about that, you start talking about the problem of the rising cost of public employee pensions, and your critics come out with the fact that you're a double dipper. It was in the newspapers just the other day. You're one of the most highly compensated elected officials in California, that in addition to your salary as a state senator, you've got over $80,000 a year as a pension for your years of service with the county, and you're making like $200,000 a year. So who are you to talk about public employees being paid too much?
Well, this is a warm welcome. Thank you very much, Rick. I really appreciate that. I think we have to realize a few things. One, just because you retire and receive a pension that is overly generous, by the way, which I will say, that doesn't mean that the recipients are bad. It means that the system is bad. So I'm the beneficiary of a system that gave me a nice pension, which I complained about, which I voted against, or which I worked against. So now I have the pension. A state legislator doesn't make. I have to be careful. It's a it's a little bit above the poverty level, but it's a good salary. But for me to take a $50,000 a year pay cut when I had other job offers, I said I don't mind supplementing my salary in working for the people in the Senate with this benefit. And thirdly, I would just say that I could have all kinds of outside income. Who cares? I mean, are we going to say only really wealthy people should serve in the legislature that can afford to have two homes or do all the commuting, et cetera, et cetera? So there are a lot of costs that are involved with being a legislator. A lot of things you have to give up and sacrifice on. And so I'm saying, wait a second. I don't feel guilty that I get a pension. I worked 20 years for the county, and I've worked 14-hour days all the way through.
Yeah. Okay.
And I could talk number 4 about how much I saved the county, $1 billion just on retiree medical alone. I think the public's getting a pretty good bargain out of me.
Okay, and but then why, what's wrong with everybody getting paid well who works for the county or the state?
Exactly, until it's unsustainable, right? And so somewhere along the way, someone has to step back and say, hey, what you've done is not appropriate. So if someone were to complain about my pension, I would say I will gladly take the same cuts that everybody else does in my same pension system. I'm there, which may occur somewhere down the road, because it happened in Detroit, where Judge all of a sudden Judge Rhodes, a federal judge, cut the pensions of retirees in Detroit to make the bankruptcy adjustment plan work.
Would you be willing to take a big cut in your pension if all other public employees also were willing to take a big cut?
Absolutely, I'd be first in line.
Have you ever?
But I don't want to be.
Have you ever thrown that offer? Have you ever thrown that offer out?
Yes, I have.
And what's your response to you when you tell your critics that?
I will do what you do. Why do you select me out because I'm an elected official? Isn't it odd, as an elected official, and getting a pension from the County of Orange, that I'm still complaining about it? Isn't that kind of funny? I mean, I should shut up, right? But no, this is wrong. There are inherently big issues here where cities will go under and have to file for Chapter 9 bankruptcy to figure out how to unwind this pretzel. And so I'm one of those guys. So you can criticize me, you can call me a double dipper. I don't think double dippers are bad people, but I think the system that created it is bad.
Okay, so let's get into this study. Who better than a certified public accountant to go through, are you currently, by the way, a certified
I am inactive.
You're inactive. We don't want anybody to say you've misrepresented yourself. All right, but look, you've been a CPA. And
a partner in a firm.
Right. So you've gone through.
My license
so
for
who
20
better
years
to
afterwards.
look at these studies? Let's not get too much into the weeds, but just explain to people what we're looking at here. This first chart is the 5 cities in Orange County that are in the best financial shape. And we're looking at something called an unrestricted net position per capita. So what does that mean? Cyprus, 1,805. Make it simple. What does this mean?
Well, we have a requirement for all municipalities to prepare financial statements, and they have to be audited by an independent CPA firm. And it's put in a little book every year. It's called a Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR. So we call it CAFR.
Yeah, oh please, let's
for
not
short.
get in there. Okay.
And you take that and you go to the basic financial statements. We're usually around page 30 of this large book, and it will tell you assets, liabilities, net assets, the difference. That should be a positive number, but we have 3 components. We have invested in assets, so you don't sell City Hall. We have money that belongs to others, and then we have unrestricted funds. This is your bottom line. This is what you own, and it should be a positive number, at least above 0. And then you take that number and divide it by the population of the city
Okay, so
to get a metric, and then you say, okay, where do you fit in the range?
So now we're looking at the top 5, and Cypress, Tustin, Irvine, Laguna Beach, Laguna Niguel. Okay, so they are all in the black. They have positive positions per person. Okay, now let's look at, these are the bottom 5 cities in Orange County in this, and they're in the red. Costa Mesa has, that's your town, John. They have the biggest problem, 1,419, and we can see the others there that also. All right, so, but what does this mean? Okay, so if you're in Costa Mesa, per capita, you're in the red by 1,419. What does that mean to anybody?
Well, maybe I'll take it into 3 different layers. One is some of the cities that are doing real well are not full service cities. They don't have their own police department and their own fire department. They are contract cities. So they hire out their fire departments to the Orange County Fire Authority, and they use the Orange County Sheriff's Department for their police department, which means that their unfunded liabilities for their pensions are on the books of the county or the OCFA, the Fire Authority. Okay. So that gives these cities a little better metric. Cities like Costa Mesa, Anaheim, they've been around for a long time. Anaheim's over 150 years old. It's called a legacy city, and they're full service. They have their own police department, their own fire department, and they have now a massive unfunded liability for their pensions, because Anaheim might even have more people getting retirement benefits as retired police officers than are on the force right now. So those are some of the dynamics. Now Costa Mesa, it's kind of hard to explain. They have one of the biggest sales tax generators on the planet with the South Coast Plaza. So I would say that they have been a little too generous with their spending on employee benefits, retirement benefits, and they just have to sit down and say, hey, where do we modify? Because maybe they've gotten a little too sloppy by having a good revenue source.
So the big driver here, the difference between the cities that are in the black, by the way, most of the cities are in the red, right, in Orange County, out of 34 cities.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the difference between those in the black and those in the red, the biggest single component is the pension liabilities. And how much do you have in pension liabilities?
It could be. Next year, these cities have to report their unfunded retiree medical. So all these numbers could all be negative, and it could all be different.
So you say it's going to get worse.
It's going to get
when
worse.
That's factored in. But
so let's say now you're moving to Orange County, and you say, let's look at this list. Where should I move to? I'd recommend you move to Cypress, because it might have a better real estate value holding than a city that might be on the precipice of having to do something very, we call it financial distress. When San Diego, the city, was under financial distress because of their pension, they were called Enron by the Sea. Real estate levels, the prices not only went level, they dropped. So you have to sit and say, okay, and in factoring everything on where I'm going to enjoy my quality of life, would I rather be in Tustin and Irvine, or would I want to be in Santa Ana or Newport Beach, which is sort of upside down, another wealthy city, high property tax base, but they're giving lifeguards salaries of over $100,000 a year.
All right, so there you lifeguards making a lot of money in Newport Beach. I thought it was interesting. Laguna Beach is one of the top-rated cities here, and Newport Beach is one of the lowest. They're right next to each other. Most people, you hardly tell the difference. You're driving along Coast Highway, you're in Newport Beach, then you're in Laguna Beach. Why this huge difference between two cities that are right next door to each other?
That's a great question. So you take a student who's trying to get his master's in public administration, and you say, dig into it.
All right.
Find out
So you're not sure why.
What decisions were made at what time that, because you can get all the history of these audited financial statements, and say, okay, what is a best management practice and what is not?
All right. So that's maybe a show for another day.
But Laguna Beach is unique too. I mean, they've got average house value is $2 million plus, right? So it's got a really strong property
Newport
tax
Beach
base.
has pretty. They're no slackers either. I mean, come on.
Right.
All right.
And they have Fashion Island. So yeah, what is it?
Again, just to get back to it though, you've been talking about pensions for years. Is someone in Brea, in Newport Beach, Anaheim, Costa Mesa, they're still getting their garbage picked up. Fire responds, police respond. Parks are open. I don't see where, despite this, anything's going wrong. This is mostly like, these assets and liabilities is kind of projections of what earnings will be on investments and things like that. A resident of Costa Mesa doesn't have to pull $1,500 out of their pocket and pay for something. So again, what's the danger of this? Why should anybody care?
You're starting to sound like Fox News, Birmingham, Alabama. So Jefferson County files for Chapter 9 bankruptcy because of a debt issue. They fly into Orange County, they drive around, they say, you guys survived Chapter 9 bankruptcy, everything looks fine. What's the problem? And so I think it's a legitimate question. You don't see negative numbers in a balance sheet. But what you don't see is the lack of hiring new police officers. You see police forces decline. We've got cities in California that have reduced their police departments by 25%. We have fire departments that are cutting back. We're seeing layoffs. The city of Huntington Beach has made 15% reduction in staffing, but their pension costs are going up 88%. So if you were to pull in city managers here and say, explain your balance sheet, explain your budgets, explain your income statements, tell us what's happening for the next 10 years, and they will tell you, we don't know how we're going to make it through.
Okay, so you say it's going to get worse. People are going to start feeling the pain?
Well, when you have retiree medicals, if those were approved by a city, right now, let's say the University of California, they have a system called pay-as-you-go. So for all these retired employees, the university just pays for their medical bills as they go. But they have set nothing aside for future costs, because as those retirees get older, the closer they get to the date of death, if I could be so clear, those medical costs will spike. And so they've done an actuarial study, and they've determined that the unfunded retiree medical for the UC system is $18 billion.
Wow.
So
finally, what's to be done?
Exactly.
What are universities, cities supposed to do?
Well, the University of California, I just asked them for a 10-year plan. At the County of Orange, we had a 10-year strategic financial plan.
But I'm saying, bottom line, everybody says, or not everybody, but I'm sure your position is you have to get these pension costs under control. I see no political will to do that.
They don't even want to take the trends of the last 10 years and cost them out for the next 10 years to see where they're going. I mean, they're not even planning, Rick.
So nobody's planning. Politicians except you are not talking about it. So it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to get worse. And so I had dinner with Governor Brown. And he says there's two bombs on the future. One is pensions, and the other is climate change. And he gets the pension issue. So he almost kind of snickered and said, hey, I'm going to get out of here okay. I'm out in a year. But the next governor, not going to be pretty.
That's an interesting conversation you had with Governor Brown. Is he going to be happy that you relayed that on the air?
I think if you pulled him on here, he would say the same thing, Rick. Why would I say anything that isn't
Yeah.
For-
no, but
for
I think that's an interesting
knows.
insight into.
He has filed an amicus brief on behalf of the California rule in the Supreme Court. I mean, his attorney general isn't even helping him out. He's doing it on his own.
Yeah.
So he gets the issue.
Yeah.
He did PEPRA, the Public Employment Pension Reform Act. He got as much as he could in a union-controlled capital, which is another topic for another day. But he got what he could. Not as much as a lot of us would have liked, but he tried. But it's like the pig going through the python. We're going to have to deal with this problem for quite some time. But at least he gets it. He's sort of, as the Democrats would say, he was a Republican governor.
Okay. All right. Well,
And we do have candid discussions.
Yes. Okay. Very, very good. Let's talk about the. So that's one hot button issue that you tackle. And let's talk about the another one here locally, the situation with the homeless. What's going on?
Well, when I became supervisor for the County of Orange in 2006, we established a commission to end homelessness, and I served as the chair of that.
2006, 12 years ago.
2006, it started. I started in kind of at the end of 06, and from 07 to when I left in 14, we worked really hard to develop a plan, but also a collaboration. We have a lot of great nonprofits in Orange County that are working to help the homeless. They're all in silos. We're trying to get them all around the table, trying to get government in the picture with the continuum of care, trying to get business into the picture. And it takes a long time, but even post-supervisor, I've been working with groups to say, how do we find permanent housing for homeless people? How do we address certain issues with the mentally ill? And so Orange County has been moving really at a deliberate pace. But then you get Judge Carter, who shows up and says, do it in 3 weeks, not in 3 years or 5 years as it takes to build.
But look, if you had this commission since 2006, I mean, the problem's gotten worse. The commission didn't, whatever it tried to do, didn't solve the problem. If anything, it got worse. Right?
You're right. I'm a big failure.
No, I'm just saying though. I'm
no, but let me tell you. I'm being a little silly, but in 2011, Governor Brown signed AB 109, which was a federal judge saying to the state, you have too many inmates in your prisons. Either build more prisons or release inmates. Okay, well, they've released inmates. Now I got another judge saying, hey, house them. And I'm going, wait, we were housing them. But you released them. And then we had voters with Democratic support approve Prop 47 and Prop 57, which says instead of making felonies, crimes a felony, make it a misdemeanor. And I've got police officers that don't arrest anybody for doing shoplifting. It's just because they know they're going to be out on the street and back shoplifting in a couple hours. They don't even bother anymore. So we have some unique problems that have occurred since 2006. Yeah. So I'm not making excuses, but we also now have the opioid epidemic. And so things have been happening in these last 11 years that have compounded the problems. Right. And so these people not being able to find jobs or housing are building camps, right?
And you have, I know you've had you've taken a personal interest in the homeless problem, and I know you've given gifts to homeless people at Christmas and things like that. So I mean, you've walked the walk on this. What is your feeling about the response of local politicians to what's going on with the homeless problem?
When I was supervisor, we try to encourage all the cities to work on what's called an SB2 zone, which is in the state law, Senate Bill 2, which requires that you have some area designated in your general plan for housing a homeless shelter year-round, up to 200 beds. So we worked with various cities, and then we purchased property in those SB2 zones. We did it in Fullerton. We did it in Santa Ana. And then what happened is once we started working on closing escrow, the city councils, have found torches and pitchforks in their city council chambers. Not in my backyard. We do not want this homeless center. So Santa Ana residents got really upset, saying it's too close to the schools. Well, wait a second. The Armory, which we've been using for decades, is right next door to a school. They share a fence. I haven't seen any reports of problems. But there's this perception, just amazing, these fears that kind of crop up in people's minds of what they think homeless people will do. Well, I lived with them for 20 years. all day long when I was at the county. I never had a problem, never had an assault.
Now, you're
never,
referencing now all the homeless around the Civic Center?
Right, right. And I'm just saying, you know, if we could find some structured homeless shelters, people wouldn't even know. We have one on Kramer right off the 91 freeway. You won't be able to find that building.
But you know, when you say that, the images that I think many people have are the images of what just happened in the Santa Ana riverbed near Angel Stadium, where people that used to jog and bike on those paths no longer felt safe, and you had these these camps, and I think a lot of residents look at that and they say, wait a second, we have something, if we get something like that in our neighborhood, it's going to destroy our neighborhoods. It's not that we're heartless people that don't want to take care of the homeless, but we don't want our parks turned into homeless camps. And, you know, we're concerned about that. Isn't that a legitimate concern?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, when you say you lived, you live with the homeless at the Civic Center, is that what we should just accept, that we should live with people camped out?
No, I didn't say that.
All right. So what are you saying?
I thought I said SB2 zones with homeless shelters.
Right.
So if every city took on their respective load of their residents in a facility that was monitored. You could say to a homeless person who's out and about at the wrong time or whatever, say, hey, you should be in the shelter where there's security, there's food, there's a bed, and there's the ability to give you a job application skills, to get you a wardrobe, to get you mainstreamed if you have an addiction problem, to maybe start working on that, get you detoxed. If you have a mental illness problem, maybe to give you assisted outpatient treatment and get a plan to help get you mainstreamed off the streets. We're not doing that. We haven't got it coordinated. We don't have one facility yet. We've got some that come pretty close, but San Antonio, Texas has a model called Haven for Hope. And if we could build a few of those around the county, then we might have a way of removing the camps, but also addressing the problem. We can't just say, get out of here, it's your problem. Because it's more complex.
Yeah.
It's more complex than that. We have a mental illness problem in Orange County that's the family secret. We have wonderful people that have been on this show, I'm sure, that have a child that has schizophrenia or is bipolar or has depression.
Yeah.
This is common.
Yeah.
We got to figure out how to address that problem, because schizophrenic kids, they just go out, they leave the house. And I've had one doctor come to me and said, I just saw my daughter on Tustin Boulevard. Haven't seen her for 2 years.
Wow. So let's talk about Fairview, the Fairview Developmental Center in your district, in Costa Mesa, your town. That's caused some controversy. You have proposed that as a possible solution to part of this problem. Just explain what you would like to see there at the Fairview Developmental Center.
Fairview Developmental Center, along with the Sonoma Developmental Center, is being closed by the state. We only have a little over 100 residents left. It's costing the state $500,000 per year per resident. So it's not a cost-effective solution. So we've got this 114-acre campus. It's in Costa Mesa. It is zoned for certain things. I want to work with the city council, with the state, the Department of Government Services, say, hey, when you sell or you do something with that, what can we do to provide some services for the mentally ill? Because we have individuals in this county, Rick, that have already committed $100 million to find a program to help the mentally ill people in this county. And how do we find real estate? And this is already kind of secluded. It can be gated. It can be taken care of in a professional manner. So I didn't want that asset to disappear. I'm not so sure if I want to do temporary housing for homeless there, just for Judge Carter, because nothing's temporary in government. I mean, I could have the ACLU suing forever to keep them there. That may not be what the residents of Costa Mesa want, and they shouldn't have more than their fair share of the load. We shouldn't be dumping on one particular city, but how do we, with multiple facilities, solve an issue? When do we step up, provide some leadership, and deal with this like we should?
Yeah, it struck me as rather courageous for you to make that proposal on Fairview in your district. The folks in Costa Mesa don't seem to like this idea at all, and there's been a lot of protests. Are you concerned that this is politically harmful to you?
Well, I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about, excuse me, is overreaction. So the City Council of Costa Mesa reacted to a press release by a county supervisor. Now that's not leadership, that's just reaction. We need proactive plans. We got to say, okay, what are we doing? Now the City of Costa Mesa, to its
We have
benefit,
15 seconds.
has done a great job with dealing with the homeless in their city. And they're kind of saying, wait, we've taken our load.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to surprise anybody. We're just saying, hey, what can we do as a community to address this issue?
Yes. Okay. Well, John, thanks so much. There's a lot more to talk about. We'll do that on our open mic segment. I would like to know a little more about your workings with Judge Carter, and so let's talk about that. And that's it for now. Thanks again to my guest, John Moorlach, and thanks as always to the OC Register for many of the photos that you've seen on this show. You can watch this show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org or rickreiff.com. You can also catch our shows and our post-show open mic chatter on YouTube, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by...
Each new community 5 Point brings to life represents a promise delivered. Great neighborhoods are more than just places to live, they are places to connect. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
Chapman University is a proud sponsor of Inside OC and community programming.